Hey everybody, welcome to Katya's Cubicle once again. So, today we're going to be talking about the 2002 comedy National Lampoon's Van Wilder, a film that I hadn't seen until just recently. Van Wilder, played by the gorgeous Ryan Reynolds, is basically just one of those college students that isn't really there to get his degree. In fact, that whole 4-year thing, not an issue to him. He's letting daddy's money pay for him to do random things like throw parties, some volunteer work, fundraisers, pretty much everything except for his own work. He sits in on people drawing classes and helps other students with things, but doesn't seem that concerned about his own need to finish school. He's a senior, but he hasn't really been attempting to graduate, as you can see by the fact that he's now been there for 7 years. He's basically well known around campus. Everybody knows who he is, but there's a stigma against him, and so the paper writes an article about him, and he thinks that the woman interviewing him is actually trying to date him, which she isn't. So that gets pretty interesting. So his love interest, that's a girl named Gwen, who is dating a guy, and the two end up rivaling each other. Not Gwen and her boyfriend, but rather Van Wilder and her boyfriend. And they start playing these really awful pranks on each other. And so that ends up being one of the funnier parts of the film and reinforces the fact that it's a comedy. It's not very realistic, however, because I don't think that people who want the same girlfriend play pranks on each other. I've heard of people fighting over it. I've heard of people arguing over it, or just bugging the girl over it, but pranks? It's just theatrical addition, I guess. One of the other somewhat comical aspects of the film is that Van Wilder's father basically decides to cut his losses and stop paying for Van Wilder to be going to school. So at that point, a committee reviews him to see whether or not he should be allowed to stay, and he manages to convince them to let him to stay, which ultimately really impresses Gwen because he's getting his life together. He's finally showing initiative after 7 years of just partying. So at this point you're probably wondering, does he get the girl in the end? Does he graduate? Does he do good on his finals to graduate? Well, I'm not going to give that part away. If you want to see the film though, I definitely suggest it. I'd give it 5 paper clips, and here's why. I think that it's a really great depiction of how a person can stay in college just fooling around, wasting their time. I know that a lot of people, including myself, have had to be on a track that is more than 4 years long. My personal reasons are transferring and adding a second major, but a lot of people it's due to poor planning. Now, this poor planning can lead to taking unnecessary classes that don't fill graduation requirements. It can also be time management problem where people are partying or posing nude for drawing classes such as Van Wilder instead of going to class and doing their work. I think that it's a really great depiction of how a person has made that mistake yet realized they're wrong and come back to still ultimately fulfill that initial goal of graduating. Or does he?